Okay, welcome to the long distance learning video for the metric system. Whether or not we are engineers, whether we're biologists, physicists, earth scientists, or any type of scientist, we need to have a common set of measurements. And of course, that common set of measurement is the metric system. In everyday life, whether or not we're riding on a motorcycle, whether or not we're measuring something at home, or we're even taking a hike, we have to have a way to measure distance. And of course, the way we measure distance is the meter. The meter is defined as a length of the path of light traveled within a vacuum within a fraction of a second. The meter was originally defined in 1793 as 1/10,000,000th of the distance from the equator to the North Pole. Thank goodness today all we have to use is a meter stick. Now you should recognize this as a beaker, and of course we use beakers to measure liquid volume. And if we take a look at 1 liter, the dimensions is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So the liter, or liter as we know it in the metric unit of volume, is equal to 1 cubic decimeter, 1,000 cubic centimeters, or 0.001 cubic meter. Now if we're trying to find the mass of perhaps you, or metal, or even fruit at the market, or maybe we're trying to measure how much mass we can actually squat on a squat rack. No matter what you're doing, we use what's known as the kilogram. The kilogram was originally defined in 1795 as the mass of 1 liter of water. So they actually tied the volume of 1 liter of water into a kilogram. Of course, that was the original, and then they converted it into something made of iron, and eventually they have a cylinder of platinum iridium. The international prototype of kilogram became the standard unit of mass for the metric system, and this is a picture of it right here. Then we need a way of measuring electricity or electrical current. And of course, if you're familiar with electricity at all, and if you've worked with electricity, you know that the unit is known as the ampere for electrical current. The International System of Units defines the ampere, or amp, in terms of others based units by measuring the electromagnetic force between the electrical conductors and the carrying electrical current. Now, along with electricity, we also have to take into consideration what unit is used to measure time. And perhaps this is the unit that we use most of all in our lives, whether or not it's on an Apple Watch, or whether or not it's Big Ben in England, or it's even down with NASA as far as space shuttle flights. Time is measured in seconds, commonly understood and historically defined as 1/86,400th of a day. This factor derived from the division of the day first into 24 hours, then into 60 minutes, and finally 60 seconds. But what if we're measuring light and how bright something is? Well, in case of whether or not you're going from 1 candle to all the way up to a star, we actually use a candela. It's a luminosity of light. Luminous power per unit solid angle emitted by a point light in a particular direction is a candela, and that's our unit. What about temperature? Well, this guy knows a little bit about temperature, and that's actually a man by the name of Lord Kelvin. And instead of using Celsius, which revolves around the freezing point of water, we use Kelvin, which revolves around the absolute 0 point of everything. Everything's frozen at 0 degrees Kelvin. So what if we're looking at molecules? This is a model of a molecule right here, and this is an artist's rendition. And if you're familiar with a guy by the name of Avogadro, that's his lovely portrait right there. We use moles. A mole is a unit of measure for amount of substance for our international system called the metric system. A mole of a substance or a mole of particles is defined as 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd particles. Okay, as we already mentioned electricity, now we're going to take a look at how we measure power. And of course, power is measured in what we call a watt. So what is a watt? A watt is a unit of power for the metric system. It's defined as a derived unit of 1 joule per second and used to quantify the rate of energy transfer. Now, in addition to the metric system, you also need to understand the metric prefixes. And what you need to do is pause the video right now and take a look at these prefixes. As you can see the line right in the middle of this particular table, that represents the base unit of whether or not you're talking about a meter, an amp, a liter, any type of base unit, and it goes in multiples of 10. So if you have a meter, then it goes to decameter, then hectometer, kilometer, megameter, gigameter, and so on and so forth. It also goes in the other direction, and that would be in fractional. So if you go a tenth, it's going to be a decimeter. If you go a hundredth, it's going to be centimeter, then millimeter, then micrometer, then nanometer, and then picometer, and so on and so forth. So you really need to become familiar with that particular table, and I'll see you next time.